Ladies and gentlemen, this is not an ordinary day, and this is not an ordinary prayer. We are standing at the intersection of time and eternity, at a divine appointment where heaven has decided to interrupt history on your behalf. Today, Friday, December 26, 2025, marks a prophetic moment of sudden shifts. I came to announce to you that what has been delayed is about to be accelerated. What has been resisted is about to be released. And what has been closed is about to be opened by divine authority. Hear me clearly. God does not need permission from circumstances to bless you. He does not consult your past to determine your future. When heaven speaks, systems must realign, resistance must break, and gates must respond. I decree that supernatural release is happening now. Release from stagnation, release from cycles of loss, release from invisible ceilings that tried to define your limits. The same power that shifted Joseph from prison to palace in one day is being activated in your life. Today, open gates are responding to your destiny, gates of opportunity, gates of provision, gates of favor, gates of influence. I declare that ancient gates are lifting and destiny doors are swinging wide, doors no enemy can shut and no delay can lock. But understand this, prayer is not begging. Prayer is enforcing heaven's will on earth. So today, we don't ask timidly. We declare boldly. We decree with authority. We legislate in the spirit realm. Lift your expectation because sudden shifts require prepared faith. Walk forward because when gates open, hesitation is not an option. This is your season of movement, manifestation, and momentum. I declare the shift has begun, the release is now, and the gates are open, and it shall be so. Divine timing is the invisible hand of God moving behind the scenes, aligning people, systems, and circumstances long before you ever see the manifestation. Many people mistake delay for denial, but delay is often proof that heaven is working with precision. God does not operate randomly. He operates intentionally. Every breakthrough has an appointed time, and when that time arrives, resistance loses its authority. What could not move yesterday will move today because timing has shifted. There are moments when effort alone is not enough. You can pray, fast, plan, and prepare, yet nothing seems to change. That is not because you are out of favor. It is because you are waiting on alignment. Divine timing is when preparation meets opportunity, when obedience intersects with heaven's calendar. When God says now, everything that was stuck must respond. Chains do not need to be fought when the clock of heaven strikes. They fall automatically. You must understand that God's timing is never late, but it is often misunderstood. We live by seconds and minutes, but God governs by seasons and epochs. What feels like a long wait to you may simply be God protecting you from entering a blessing prematurely. Entering too early can destroy what entering on time would establish. Divine timing ensures sustainability, not just access. In divine timing, God synchronizes you with the right people. You miss certain connections not because you are unqualified, but because the moment was not yet ripe. When timing aligns, introductions happen effortlessly. Conversations open doors. One meeting changes years of struggle. This is why you must not force doors that God has not timed. Forced doors exhaust you. Timed doors empower you. There is also a prophetic dimension to divine timing. Certain days are marked in heaven for transition. Certain moments carry acceleration. Suddenly, what took years to move begins to move in weeks, then days, then moments. That is not coincidence. That is timing. Heaven compresses time when alignment is complete. This is why you must remain spiritually sensitive, because when the window opens, hesitation can cost you. Divine timing also exposes what no longer belongs in your next season. God will delay you long enough for distractions to fall away, for wrong attachments to loosen their grip, and for your character to mature. Timing is not just about arrival, it is about readiness. God will not place you where your discipline cannot sustain you. When divine timing activates, struggle decreases and grace increases. You stop pushing and start flowing. What required force now requires faith. What demanded effort now responds to authority. This is how you know timing has shifted. Things begin to cooperate instead of resist. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are being positioned. Heaven has been adjusting variables you cannot see, rearranging outcomes you could not control, and protecting you from consequences you never knew existed. When the moment arrives, it will be unmistakable. You will feel a release in your spirit, a boldness in your decisions, and a clarity in your direction. Divine timing means that when it happens right. Not partially, not temporarily, but strategically and sustainably. What opens in divine timing does not close easily. What is birthed in divine timing carries authority. And when God aligns your life with His timing, your future no longer depends on struggle. It depends on obedience. The clock of heaven is real, and when it strikes, everything changes. Sudden shifts are not emotional moments. They are authorized movements of heaven. When God initiates a shift, it does not come by human permission or logical progression. It comes by decree. One word from heaven can override years of resistance, and one moment of divine authority can collapse systems that stood against you for decades. Sudden shifts are proof that God is not bound by process. He is Lord over it. Many people struggle because they expect change to be gradual. But there are times when God bypasses stages and moves you instantly. This is because some battles are not meant to be fought. They are meant to be ended. When heaven authorizes a shift, what was heavy becomes light, what was complex becomes simple, and what was impossible becomes inevitable. You don't argue with resistance, you outrank it. Sudden shifts happen when spiritual authority is exercised correctly. Authority is not volume, it is alignment. When you are aligned with God's will, your words carry weight. Your declarations disturb the unseen realm. Your obedience triggers movement in places you cannot access physically. This is why shifts feel sudden to people, but they were prepared in the spirit long before they appeared in the natural. Do not confuse sudden shifts with luck. Luck has no intelligence. Divine shifts are intentional. God does not randomly bless. He strategically repositions. When the shift comes, it reorders priorities, relocates influence, and redistributes power. People who ignored you will suddenly need you. Places that rejected you will suddenly host you. Systems that blocked you will suddenly accommodate you. That is not coincidence. That is authority enforcing heaven's verdict. Sudden shifts often come after prolonged pressure. Pressure is not punishment. It is positioning. God allows pressure to concentrate your focus, refine your discernment, and strip distractions. When the shift happens, you will realize the pressure was shaping you for speed. You cannot move suddenly if you are still carrying excess weight from old seasons. Heaven's authority does not negotiate with opposition. When God shifts you, the enemy does not get a vote. Delays expire, cycles break, patterns dissolve. You step out of repetition and into progression. What kept repeating loses its grip because authority has overridden it. Sudden shifts also demand courage. When God moves you quickly, you must be willing to leave familiarity without explanation. You cannot wait for comfort when authority is calling you forward. Shifts often happen before you feel ready, because readiness is proven by obedience, not confidence. If you hesitate, you may miss the momentum. When a sudden shift occurs, grace increases to match the demand. God never accelerates you without equipping you. You may move fast, but you will not collapse. You may be elevated quickly, but you will not be exposed. Authority brings stability, not chaos. What looks fast to others will feel ordered to you. This is why you must stay spiritually alert. Shifts do not announce themselves loudly. They reveal themselves through opportunity, a phone call, a decision, a window that opens briefly. When authority activates, you must respond immediately. Delay is dangerous in moments of acceleration. Sudden shifts are not about escape. They are about assignment. God is moving you because where you are can no longer contain what He placed inside you. Your capacity has outgrown your environment. Authority is relocating you to match your calling. When heaven decides to shift you, it will be unmistakable. Resistance will weaken. Fear will lose its voice. Boldness will rise. And you will know, not because everything makes sense, but because everything suddenly moves. This is what happens when divine authority speaks. The shift does not ask permission. It simply happens. Supernatural release is not merely freedom from something, it is access to something greater. When God releases you, He is not just breaking chains, He is removing limitations that kept you confined to a smaller version of your destiny. Release is heaven's way of saying, you are no longer authorized to remain where you are. Many people think they are fighting external opposition, but often the greatest restraints are internal, mindsets shaped by disappointment, fear learned through failure, and expectations limited by past experience. Supernatural release begins when God disrupts the agreements you unknowingly made with limitation. The moment those agreements are broken, your capacity expands. This kind of release does not come through effort alone. It comes through divine intervention. There are things prayer alone loosens, and there are things only heaven's power removes. Supernatural release overrides laws that governed your stagnation. What once required permission now responds to authority. What once resisted now yields without struggle. Release often happens quietly before it manifests visibly. God will first liberate your perception. You start seeing options where you once saw walls. You begin thinking beyond survival and into sustainability. This internal shift is proof that release has already begun. When your thinking changes, your trajectory follows. Supernatural release also brings restoration of strength. Prolonged battles drain you, but release renews you. Suddenly, your energy returns. Your creativity reignites. Your hunger revives. This is because what was oppressing your spirit has been lifted. You are no longer moving under weight. You are moving under grace. There are seasons when God allows confinement for growth, but there comes a moment when confinement becomes illegal. When God declares release, any system that continues to hold you becomes unauthorized. This is why sudden breakthroughs often follow long seasons of silence. Heaven was preparing the order of release while you were learning endurance. Release does not mean absence of responsibility. It means empowerment to function at a higher level. God releases you so you can govern, build, influence, and transform. Freedom without purpose leads to confusion, but release with assignment produces impact. God does not free you to wander. He frees you to advance. Supernatural release also redefines your relationships. Some connections will not survive your freedom, not because they are evil, but because they were only assigned to your previous season. Release requires separation. What cannot follow you forward must be left behind without guilt. You are not abandoning people, you are obeying progression. When release happens, momentum replaces stagnation. Doors open without force. Provision appears without panic. Favor precedes you instead of chasing you. This is the evidence of supernatural involvement. What you could not manufacture is now being supplied. You must also understand that release is irreversible when it is God ordained. What heaven frees, no enemy can rebind. Attempts to pull you back will fail. Accusations will lose credibility. Past labels will no longer fit. Release changes your identity in the spirit realm. Supernatural release does not always feel dramatic, but it is always decisive. One moment, you realize you are no longer bound by what once defined you. You speak differently, you move differently, you decide differently. That is how you know release is complete. You are not waiting for release. Release is waiting for your agreement. When you align with heaven's verdict, limitation collapses. And once God releases you, your only responsibility is to move forward without apology. Open gates are not symbolic ideas. They are systems responding to divine command. In scripture and in spiritual law, gates represent access, authority, movement, and control. Whoever controls the gate controls what enters and exits. When God declares open gates over your life, He is not merely blessing you. He is granting you authorized access to realms that were previously restricted. Many people pray for increase without understanding that increase does not come until gates open. You can have potential, gifting, and vision, but without access, you remain limited. Closed gates produce frustration, delay, and exhaustion. Open gates produce flow. When gates open, effort decreases and effectiveness increases. You stop fighting your way forward and start moving through prepared pathways. There are gates that are natural. Education, systems, institutions, networks. And there are gates that are spiritual, favor, influence, timing, authority. When God opens a gate, he causes both realms to cooperate. Suddenly, the right people recognize you. The right doors respond to you. The right environments make room for you. This is not favoritism. It is positioning. Open gates do not always open because you are loud. They open because you are aligned. Alignment gives you access where noise never could. When heaven authorizes you, gates recognize your assignment. You do not have to explain yourself at divinely opened gates. Your presence is explanation enough. There are also ancient gates, long-standing systems, generational patterns, entrenched limitations that have restricted your bloodline, your region, or your calling. These gates do not respond to human strategy alone. They respond to divine command. When God says lift, resistance loses its claim. What was closed for generations can open in one moment when authority speaks. Open gates also signal transition. When a gate opens, it means you are being invited to move from one dimension to another. Staying where you are after a gate opens creates stagnation. Gates are not opened for observation. They are opened for passage. You must be willing to walk through what God opens, even when it stretches your capacity. With open gates comes accountability. Access increases responsibility. What you enter must be stewarded. God opens gates for those he trusts to govern, not just consume. If you misuse access, gates can close. But when you honor what God opens, access multiplies. Faithfulness keeps gates open. Open gates change your speed. What took years begins to take months. What took months begins to take days. This is because gates remove friction. They eliminate unnecessary resistance. When gates open, time compresses and progress accelerates. This is why seasons of open gates feel fast. Momentum has been released. There will be gates that open unexpectedly. Opportunities you did not apply for. Invitations you did not request. Favor you did not negotiate. This is the evidence that God has gone ahead of you. When God opens a gate, he does not need your resume. He endorses you himself. Not every open gate will look comfortable. Some gates lead into unfamiliar territory, but unfamiliar does not mean unsafe. God often opens gates that require growth. He opens access before you feel ready so that dependence on him remains intact. Gates stretch you, but they also sustain you. You must also discern which gates are divinely opened and which are distractions. Not every opportunity is an open gate. Divine gates bring peace with pressure, clarity with challenge, and confirmation in your spirit. If a gate drains you without purpose, it may not be heaven authorized. When God declares open gates over your life, it is a statement of permission. Permission to advance, permission to expand, permission to occupy spaces that once intimidated you. You are no longer trespassing, you are authorized. And when gates open by divine command, they do not open halfway, they open fully. What God opens cannot be shut by opposition, delay, or opinion. Once the gate responds to heaven, your future is no longer blocked, it is accessible. This is the power of open gates. Speaking with prophetic authority is not about sounding spiritual. It is about being legally aligned with heaven's will. Authority is not created by emotion, volume, or repetition. Authority flows from position. When your life is aligned with God's purpose, your words carry weight in the unseen realm. You are not just speaking sounds. You are issuing commands that systems must respond to. Many people pray hoping something will happen. Prophetic authority prays knowing something must happen. The difference is understanding jurisdiction. You cannot command what you are not authorized to govern. But when heaven assigns you territory over your life, your family, your calling, your voice becomes an instrument of enforcement. What you say on earth echoes in the spirit realm. Words are containers of power. When spoken under authority, they do not return empty. Prophetic speech releases instruction, not information. It sets things in motion. This is why silence can sometimes be disobedience. There are moments when God expects you to speak because your silence allows resistance to remain unchallenged. Prophetic authority requires clarity. You must know what God has said before you say anything. Authority is not improvisation. It is agreement. When you speak what heaven has already declared, your words become executable. Angels respond. Systems realign. Resistance weakens. Not because you are powerful, but because you are aligned. There is a difference between venting and declaring. Venting releases frustration. Declaring releases power. When you speak prophetically, you are not describing your problem. You are redefining your environment. You speak to situations as though they must obey, because under authority, they must. Prophetic authority also demands discipline. You cannot speak faith one moment and fear the next and expect consistency. Words create atmosphere. If your language is unstable, your results will be unstable. Authority is maintained by consistency. What you decree publicly must align with what you believe privately. This authority grows through obedience. Each time you act on God's instruction, your voice gains credibility in the spirit realm. Authority is cumulative. Heaven trusts those who obey. This is why some people speak and nothing happens, while others whisper and things shift. Authority recognizes obedience, not noise. When you speak prophetically, timing matters. A word spoken too early can be ineffective. A word spoken too late can be costly. Sensitivity to the Spirit ensures that your declarations land when resistance is weakest and alignment is strongest. Authority is not just what you say, it is when you say it. Prophetic authority also confronts opposition without fear. You do not argue with resistance, you command it. You do not beg circumstances to change, you instruct them to comply. Fear dilutes authority. Confidence rooted in alignment amplifies it. Your voice is one of your greatest spiritual weapons. What you tolerate silently may continue unnecessarily. What you confront with authority often collapses quickly. When God places a word in your mouth, He expects execution. Heaven backs what it authorizes. Speaking with prophetic authority also requires restraint. Not everything needs to be spoken publicly. Some declarations are private legislation. Authority does not seek attention, it seeks results. Mature authority knows when to speak loudly and when to speak quietly. When you speak under prophetic authority, your words become boundaries. They define what is allowed and what is not. Chaos recognizes order. Confusion submits to clarity. Delay responds to command. You were not given a voice merely to express emotion. You were given a voice to establish heaven's will. And when you speak from alignment, the atmosphere must adjust. This is prophetic authority in action. Walking boldly into manifestation requires a shift from anticipation to occupation. Many people are comfortable waiting on promises, but bold faith steps into fulfillment without apology. Manifestation is not passive, it is participatory. When God brings something into reach, He expects movement, not hesitation. Faith that does not move eventually expires.